Hello everyone. Before we get started with today's video, I want to welcome all the new subscribers that have joined the channel in the last week. Ben Horn was very gracious to mention me in one of his recent videos, and a number of his subscribers have come over here, and I'm really grateful, and I hope you find something interesting and valuable on this channel as well. The reason Ben did that is because we're working on a little project where we're trying to find the owner of an SD card that I found in Death Valley earlier this year. I reached out to Ben to help with that because he had such great success finding the owner of a digital camera that had fallen off of Angel's Landing in Zion. So hopefully we'll be able to find the owner of this SD card as well. If you haven't seen that video that Ben just made, I'll put a link to it up here, and I'll also link to that Angel's Landing video. I think you'll really enjoy both of those. Well, with all that as an introduction, let's get started with today's video. I hope you enjoy it. Well, it's summer here in Northwest Florida, which means it's ridiculously hot and humid, and definitely not conducive to landscape photography, at least the kind I like to do. So today I've come out to one of my favorite forest spots to instead just talk about a photographic technique, a tool actually, that I use on almost every photograph I make that helps me identify a subject, choose a composition, identify where I'm going to place the camera, helps me organize the scene and the frame and all the elements within it, and all of this without even getting the camera out of the bag. So today we're going to talk about the viewing frame. So the viewing frame is a tool that I've used for many years, and it's basically just a plastic frame where you can get a cardboard cutout. We'll talk about different styles later, but basically it's just a frame, and you close one eye, which is really important because you have to get rid of the three-dimensional view of the world that your two eyes gives you and translate into the sort of two-dimensional image that you'll be making with a photograph by closing one eye. So you close an eye and then you just look through this frame, and it allows you to you can zoom in by moving closer and simulate a wide angle by pulling back, and you just walk around the world and look through this frame, and it just helps you identify your subject matter, and you can find your subject this way. You can just flip horizontal. It's so easy to flip to vertical, horizontal, and you can just identify your spot. And when you've moved around and you've fixed all the mergers and maybe included some tension points and got everything just the way you want it, and you know that's right where you want to stand and put your tripod, you just throw this thing down, and then you can just go get your camera, and you're then ready to set up and do all the mechanical parts of setting up the shot. But the real creative work is over. Identifying the subject, where you're going to place the camera, that angle of view, which lens, that's all the creative stuff. And then after that, it's sort of just the mechanics of working through actually capturing that image that you have in mind. Now, there are many different kinds of these viewing frames, and they've been used for years. Ansel Adams used to give them out at his workshops, just cut out of a piece of white mat board. And sort of the idea is when you hold this thing up, you're envisioning your image inside this mat board, like it would be hanging on a wall. So that's kind of another point of it, is that you can actually sort of see in your mind's eye the image that you're looking at, you know, matted, framed up on a wall. And so that's one of the reasons that we use these. But there's another style. This is you know, for color, because I'm just seeing the world in its natural colors. But there's another kind that we use too, and this is one that helps simulate black and white. And I don't know if you can see, it's sort of an amber color. I don't know if you can see the light coming through, but it doesn't give you exactly the same real black and white tones, but it mutes the natural colors of the scene, and it lets you see the tonal relationships more like black and white will reveal. So this is a terrific tool These are available on eBay usually. They're not inexpensive now. They weren't terrifically expensive when they were first made by Zone 6, but again, this is the Zone 6 black and white viewing filter. They're available in all different formats. They come in square for 35mm, for 4x5. This one is a 4x5, and it's close enough to my 645 that I like to use a lot. And of course, when I'm using my large format camera, then it's perfect aspect ratio. So I really recommend one of these. I carry both this one and the one for color, and every picture I've made in the last 20 to 30 years has been made with one, has been first identified with one of these two devices. So the way I like to use the viewing frame when I'm hiking is you just leave your camera in your backpack on your back, and you're walking along, and if you see something that looks interesting, you just stop, take a look at it through the viewing frame. If it looks good and you want to shoot it, well, you're ready to set up and shoot. If not, you just keep going. And you haven't had to, take the pack off and set up a camera to look in order to frame your composition, so it just makes it really convenient that way. So let's say you're on a driving trip, and maybe you're driving through the Smoky Mountains, or you're on the Blue Ridge Parkway, or maybe you're driving the Loop Road in Yosemite, or the Canyon Road in Zion. All these places and so many others have great turnouts all along the road. So you can just pull off the car into one of those turnouts when it looks like a place you want to explore. Leave the camera gear in the car, grab your viewing frame, and go exploring. Now obviously, if you're going to be a long way from the car, you just want to take your gear. But if you're going to be fairly close to the car, then just take the viewing frame and explore the area. When you find your subject and your composition, well, you just drop that viewing frame on the ground right where you plan to put your tripod. Go back to the car, get the gear, come back, and this way you haven't lost the spot where you intended to take the picture from. Set up and make your picture. So another aspect to this viewing frame, the way I use it, is this string that I have attached. Now mine happens to be just a single piece, but it could be a loop, and that's no problem. But what you do is you put knots every so often along the string, or you maybe color it a different color or pass some thread through it to make a mark. But the point of that mark is it helps you identify your focal length. So you put a knot at whatever distance it takes to simulate the field of view of any particular focal length lens. Now again, this is a bit of a holdover for when using prime lenses. So maybe have a 24mm, so that knot will be very close, and you just hold it to your cheek with that knot, and that gives you the framing for the 24mm. And then maybe the next one you have is a 50, and so then you put a knot there where that simulates the distance that gives you framing for a 50, and so on, all the way out to maybe 200 is your longest. Okay, so now you've got the knot all the way out here, and that'll tell you that you're using a 200mm lens. So the point of it is now, with just leaving the camera gear in the bag, you can wander around, and not only can you find the subject, the place to stand, the composition, but then you just bring the string to your cheek and count the knots, and that tells you which lens you need to put on the camera. So you don't have to put on one and realize, oh, that's too long or too short, and you know exactly which one. And if you're using a zoom lenses, let's say you have the holy trinity of the 3 zoom lenses that people talk about, so you could put knots at the beginning and the end of each zoom range, so that wherever you find yourself, you can look at it and go, oh, okay, I see, that's my my 80 to 200 or my 24 to 105. And so it really helps you that way to identify the correct focal length or the correct lens if it's prime, so you can just go right to that and not waste any time. Okay, so here's a subject that I've been trying to figure out how to make work, and I haven't successfully done it yet, but I thought this would be a good place to take a look through the viewing frame and just see how I might actually use it in trying to identify a composition on this subject. So I really like the way the trees go up and then back down, and one of them's broken off, and I just kind of like that, the feeling of that. But I just haven't decided exactly where to stand. I've looked at it over here with maybe covering these trees up into kind of one. I don't know. But anyway, so I would just take my viewing frame and I would just move around, holding that up so I can just, you can see I'm keeping the sky out of it, and just move around till the mergers go away and till I like the composition. And then if I want to try a vertical, maybe it's a vertical. That's okay, but I think I like the horizontal because it emphasizes the length of those angled trees as they go in and out. So anyway, I would not shoot it on a day like today with the full sun in the forest, but this is a good illustration of how you use that filter, or sorry, the viewing frame or the filter frame if you were doing black and white in the same way, to just identify the perfect spot. And let's say this is it, then I would just drop that frame right there, go get the tripod set up, and start working on, focusing and exposure and sort of the mechanics of the picture, because the creative work at that point is really done. I've identified the subject, I've identified the composition and framing, and now it's just a matter of making the picture. Well, let's say you want to make your own viewing frame. We've already talked about the Zone 6, and it might be available on eBay from time to time. But if you want to make your own, you just need to get some of the Kodak Raton number 90 filter material, and that comes in sheets. And then just take some cardboard and cut out whatever size of viewing frame you might want, tape that Raton number 90 filter material in there, and you're all set. And that's for a black and white viewing frame. Now, if you want to make one for color that's more, clear, this one that I have was made by a friend of mine a number of years ago. He worked in the plastics fabrication industry, and it's made out of Lexan. It's really indestructible, but it's not commercially available. But there are a couple of strategies for what some people do. And one thing you can do is get some white mat board, like you might mount and frame your pictures in. And just, again, cut out whatever size you're comfortable with. And then cut out the interior hole for whatever aspect ratio for camera you're going to use. And that's it. You've got a viewing frame. The good thing about those is it's pretty cheap. When they get dirty or torn, you just cut another one. So it's not a bad way to go. But another option is to go to an office supply store like a Staples and buy some report covers. These are plastic report covers, like a school child might put a school report in. And these are pretty tough plastic material. And so, again, you just cut whatever exterior size you'd like to have, cut out the inside for your aspect ratio of your camera, and you're all set. And the nice thing about these packs of material is you can usually get several viewing frames out of one pack. So you could have several maybe different aspect ratios if you shoot a couple different kinds of cameras, or you can share a pack with friends. So that works really well, and I'd really recommend you try it. I think you'll enjoy using a viewing frame. So, do you use a viewing frame or a viewing filter? Did you used to and you stopped? What do you do? I'd be interested to know if any of you are using these frames. I sure love them, and I'd love to know in the comments what you guys think. Okay, well, hopefully that's given you an idea of how I use these viewing filters, viewing frames, and some ideas about how you could make one yourself or acquire one. And I cannot recommend highly enough using a tool like this. It really lets you just sort of forget about the technology of the camera. You don't have to have it on your, around your neck, or take the time to set it up every time just to see what a picture is going to look like. The proper use of that viewing frame will absolutely do that for you. And I think it's a really, really great tool. And I wouldn't leave home for a photography trip without those tools. So I hope you've liked this video. Hope you found something interesting and informative in it. And if so, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Tap that little notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. I really appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.